So now let's take a look at some for loops. And again, it's important to stress that anything you can do with a for loop, you can do with a while loop. A for loop is just a special case of a while loop where you know how many times something is going to happen. So let's write a while loop where we know how many times something is going to happen. All right. So we've got a set, we've got to come up with our condition. And we'll just have, that x is equal to 0. We'll just start at x out at 0. And then we're going to have a check for our condition. And we'll say that while x is less than 11, let's just do 5. Let's do less than or equal to 5. I don't know why I'm having so much trouble deciding on what to do for this example. It doesn't really matter. All right, so we're going to just have a simple program of printing x. And we need to, so we have our set, we have our check, we need our update. All right, we're going to update our condition. And remember, our condition is the condition that controls the loop. So in this case, it's x. So in order to update x, so we're starting at 0. And what I'm doing with this loop is we're just going to count from 0 to 5. And we can even say, let's just count from 1 to 5. All right? So to update our condition, we're going to say x plus equals 1. And remember, this is the same as saying x equals x plus 1. This is just shorthand notation for this longer bit of code. It's something you need to get used to though, because a lot of programmers use this shorthand notation, so you want to make sure you recognize it when you see it. I don't care which one you use, they're both fine as far as I'm concerned. So we have all three parts of our loop. We have our set condition, we have where we were checking our condition here within our while loop, and we've updated our condition so that this loop will end someday. We're starting at 1, we're counting up to 5, and once we're greater than 5, this loop should stop running. So let's run it and make sure we've done everything correctly. And what we see is it's going to print 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We know that this loop is going to run as many times as, if I change this to 10, it's going to count to 10. If I change it to 100, it's going to count to 100. But basically, I have a way to know how many times this loop is going to occur. Compare this to when a user is going to quit. I don't know how many times it's going to take for a user to quit. The user might run the program once, the user might run the program 100 times. So you must use a while loop for that case. But in this case, because we know how many times the loop is going to run, I could write an equivalent for loop here. So this is going to be our equivalent for loop to what I've got up here, right? Let's change this back to 5 and let's see how this works. All right, so I'm going to say for I, or just to make it x, should really be I. We like to use i's for counters, but that's all right. Python doesn't care. So in range, and we're going to start at 1. So this is our set condition right here. Our starting condition is the same as our set condition. In this case, because I'm stopping at 5, I have to go to 6 because this needs to be one more than where I want to stop. And again, this is going to seem like a mystery right now, but once we start using for loops with lists and strings, this is going to make total sense. You're going to be like, oh, duh, that's why they did that. Now, I should put a step here of 1 because I'm counting up by 1, positive 1. But since the 1 is the default for a for loop, you don't have to type that explicitly. You can if it makes you feel better. You don't have to though. So here we've got our set. We've got our check. We're going to stop right before 6. We want to stop at 5, so we're going to stop before 6. If I rewrote this like this, it might look a little bit more familiar. This does exactly the same thing. And here is my update. Here is my update. It's the step portion of my for loop. Now in here, I'm just going to print x. Let me add in a couple of print statements, just empty ones here so I can have some space in between these two. So now these should run and we should get exactly the same thing for both of these. We should be counting from 1 to 5. 1 to 5, this is our while loop right here, and this is our for loop right here. Just like we did when in just talking about iteration in general, let's comment this out. You can count backwards in a loop. This is pretty important because it's pretty handy. So if I want to count backwards, I would start at the number I want to count from. So let's say I'm going to count from 5 to 1. I have to go one past where I want to stop. So if I want to stop at 1, my end condition is going to be 0, and -1 is going to be my step. This means I'm counting backwards from 5 to 1. And let's print I. All right, and let's see how this runs. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. So this is how a for loop works. Again, we're going to use for loops a lot when we get to our data structures that we're learning in this class. We're going to be looking at lists, we're going to be looking at dictionaries, and of course, we're going to be looking at strings. And for loops are really essential for processing, these types of data structures. So give for loops some practice and let me know if you need any help. Happy programming!